Good morning. In the last session, we have summarized the topics that we have discussed in the Spring Boot. So in the Spring Boot, we discussed about auto wiring, bean life cycle. We discussed about runners in the Spring Boot. We discussed about banner in the Spring Boot. We discussed about IOC container dependency injection. And we also discussed about Spring Boot annotations, like what is a component, what is the service, what is the repository, what is the configuration, bean, scope, auto white, qualifier, primary, post construct, pre-destroy, like that we discussed about several annotations. And I have given one assignment for you to set up database in your system. I've given the assignment to install database in your system, MySQL database. I have given the video also. In that video, I have explained how to install database server and how to install database client software. And I have given one video to understand how to develop our application, first application by using Spring Data JPA. How many of you able to do that? Understandable? Right. So first, let's understand what is Spring Data JPA. Let's understand what is Spring Data JPA. JPA stands for Java Persistence API. When we talk about the JPA, JPA stands for Java Persistence API. JPA is used to communicate with the databases using Java applications. If your Java application wants to communicate with the database, then we are going to use JPA, right? Now, here, Spring Data JPA. Spring Data is a module that is using JPA, Java Persistence API, in order to communicate with the databases by using Java applications. So we have several options to communicate with the database using Java applications. We have several options to communicate with the database. Communicate with database using Java applications. What are those options? First option, JDBC is available. Then second option, Spring JDBC available. Third option, Hibernate is available. Fourth option, Spring ORM available. And the fifth option, Spring Data JPA is available. For every application, database is mandatory to store the data. So we are sending some messages in the WhatsApp. So you are sending a messages in the WhatsApp to your friends. After 1 month also, if you open the chat, you can read the message. So whatever the messages you are sending, those messages are not getting deleted. That means WhatsApp application storing our chat history in the database table. So WhatsApp application is communicating with the database. Suppose if it is a Java application, how Java application will communicate with the database. So Java developers can use JDBC to communicate with the database, Spring JDBC also to communicate with the database, Hibernate we can use to communicate with the database, Spring ORM also we can use to communicate with the database, Spring Data JPA, which is the latest in the market, in order to communicate with the database. So if you go for JDBC, the problem is boilerplate code. We need to write some common logics in every method. Load the driver, get the connection, create the statement, write the query, execute the query, close the connection. These logics are common when you go for JDBC to develop our logics. To overcome that boilerplate code in the JDBC, people are using Spring JDBC. To overcome the problems of the JDBC, people are using Spring JDBC to perform operations with the database. When you go for Spring JDBC, we have to write queries. Okay, you just write the query and that query will be executed by Spring JDBC. You no need to deal with the driver, you no need to deal with the connection, you no need to deal with the statement. Whatever the query that you want to execute, directly you give that query to Spring JDBC, then it is going to execute your query in the database direct. So instead of writing 5 lines of code to insert a record. 1 line of code is sufficient to insert the record by writing the queries. You can write the query, you can execute that query by using Spring JDBC. When you go for Hibernate, Hibernate is ORM framework, nothing but object relational mapping. Hibernate is a ORM framework that is providing object relational mapping. What is the meaning of object relational mapping? Instead of we are writing the queries, we can save our object, we can retrieve the data in the form of object. So when you go for normal JDBC or Spring JDBC, we need to write insert into employee, values, employee 1, John, and some salary is available. Okay, like this you need to write one insert query. Okay, and when you want to retrieve the data, you are going to execute select star from EMP. Okay, the select star from EMP is going to give you result set object. It's going to give you result set object. That means we are dealing with the text to data. When you go for normal JDBC or when you go for Spring JDBC, we need to deal with the text to data. We should write the insert query, we should write update query, we should write the delete query. When you execute a select query, data will come in the form of result set object. You need to move the cursor of the result set object next, and you need to get the data from the result set. So you are going to deal with text to data when you go for JDBC and Spring JDBC. But Java is a object-oriented programming language. Everything will be represented in the form of objects in the Java. So I have employee data in the employee object. I have the data in the EMP object. I cannot insert, I cannot send this object to the database direct. And I want to deal with the objects of data. I don't want to deal with the text data. I want to deal with the objects data. So that's where ORM framework came into picture, which is a Hibernate. When you go for the Hibernate, you don't need to write the query. You call the save method in the Hibernate. Hibernate dot save of employee object. That's it. I got the data from the user in the form of object. I am representing Java is a boot programming language. Everything will be represented in the form of objects. So I have my data in the form of object. When you go for JDBC or Spring JDBC, you cannot deal with the objects of data. You need to deal with the text data. If you want to insert a record, insert query you have to write. If you want to retrieve the record, result set object you are going to get. Again, you need to iterate the result set. You need to get the text data column by column. So here, to overcome this problem, people came up with a framework called Hibernate framework. Hibernate is called as ORM framework. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping. What is the meaning of Object Relational Mapping? Whatever the data you want to insert, update, or delete, or retrieve, you can represent the data in the form of object. So that's why we are going for a framework called Hibernate. When you go for Hibernate also, you need to deal with some boilerplate code. Okay. When you go for a Hibernate also, you need to deal with some boilerplate code. To overcome that boilerplate code, we are going to use Spring ORM. This is Spring ORM internally uses Hibernate only. When you go for Spring ORM, instead of writing 3 lines of code, when you want to deal with the objects of data, in the Hibernate you need to write 3 lines of code. But when you go for the Spring ORM, internally it will use Hibernate framework only. But here, currently in the market, Hibernate is also outdated. People are going for a concept called data JPA. So what is the benefit of using this data JPA? When you go for data JPA, you no need to write single line of code also to perform the operations with the database. Data JPA will take care of our operation. So you want to insert the record, you want to update the record, you want to delete the record, retrieve the record. You no need to write any logic, you no need to write any query, you no need to write any method. Everything is already predefined in the Spring Data JPA. By using this Spring Data JPA, easily we can develop our applications to communicate with the database. So programmer will get a lot of luxury when we are going for Spring Data JPA. So what is the main purpose of Spring Data JPA? Spring Data JPA is used to communicate with the databases by using Java application. So we are developing Java application. In the Java application, database communication is required. This is my Java application. My Java application want to communicate with the database to store the data. This is a DB and this is my Java application. Right. So this Java application wants to communicate with this database. So for that, we are going to use Spring Data JPA as a mediator. So where we are going to use Spring Data JPA in our project, it is used to communicate with the databases. What is the benefit of using Spring Data JPA? What is the benefit of using Spring Data JPA? No need to write the methods. You don't need to write the methods. Without writing any method also, you can communicate with the database by using Spring Data JPA. When I use Spring Data JPA, internally, that Spring Data JPA is going to communicate with the Hibernate, and that Hibernate is going to communicate with the database here. Internally, it is going to communicate with the Hibernate, and that Hibernate is going to communicate with the JDBC only to perform our operations. Are you guys clear with my point? Our Java application will communicate with the Spring Data JPA. Data JPA internally will communicate with the Hibernate. Hibernate is going to communicate with the JDBC. Finally, JDBC is going to communicate with the database. Are you guys clear with my point? Yes. Spring Data JPA will be available. Now, that Spring Data JPA will communicate with the Hibernate. Hibernate is going to communicate with the JDBC. And finally, that JDBC is going to communicate with the database. So, this is how we are going to develop our application. Already we learned Spring Boot. Fundamental concepts of the Spring Boot we understood. Now, when I'm going to develop a Spring Boot application, I'm going to communicate with the database. So in order to communicate with the database, we are going to use Data JPA. Our application will communicate with the Data JPA. Data JPA will communicate with the Hibernate. Hibernate will communicate with the JDBC. JDBC will communicate with the database. What is the benefit? Why we are not using JDBC directly? Why we are not using JDBC directly to communicate with the database? If you use JDBC directly, you need to write a lot of boilerplate. Code. I don't want to do that. That's why I'm going for a Hibernate. I can represent the data in the form of object. If you go for a Hibernate also, there is a problem. What is the problem with the Hibernate? Some boilerplate code we need to write. Okay, some boilerplate code we need to write. Very easily, without keeping much efforts, I should be able to develop my logic to communicate with the database. That's why we are going for Spring Data JPA. So when you want to develop your application by using Spring Data JPA, first we need to understand what is data source. First one, we need to understand what is data source. Second one, we need to understand what is entity. We need to understand what is entity. Third one, we need to understand what is repository. Okay, if you know these three concepts, then you can work with Data JPA to perform the operations. So what are the three things we need to understand, guys? First one is data source. Second one is entity. Third one is repository. What is data source? Data source represents connections with a database. If you want to connect with a database, then we need the data source object. Data source represents set of connections with the database. We can also say connection pool. So in the JDBC, programmer is responsible to get the connection with the database. But when you go for Data JPA, Data JPA will take care of connections with the database. So the database connections will be represented by using data source object. Now we need to configure data source properties in application.properties file. So with which database our application want to communicate? What is the URL? What is the username? What is the password? All those details we are going to configure. Those are called as data source properties. My Java application wants to communicate with one database. Where is that database is available? What is the URL of the database? What is the username of the database? What is the password of the database? Database URL, database username, database password. These properties are called as data source properties. So where we will configure these data source properties in the application? Data source properties we are going to configure in one file. That file is called as application.properties file. Data source properties will configure in one file. That file is called as application.properties file. So when you configure application.properties file with the data source properties, then data JPA will load those properties, will create the connections, will give the data source object for you. Can you tell me what is the meaning of data source? Come on. Data source represents connection, set of connections with the database. We can also say it is going to create the connection pool. It is going to create a connection pool. That means multiple connections it is going to create. It will give the connections to you in the form of one data source object. How it will create the connection pool? How it will know with which database it has to get the connections? We have here one properties file in the Spring Boot. In that properties file, we are going to configure data source properties. What are the data source properties we'll configure? Database driver, database URL, database username, database password. That's it. Next one, what is an entity? What is entity? Entity is a Java class. Entity is a Java class which is mapped with a database table. What is entity, guys? Entity is a Java class which is mapped with the database table. We are not going to write insert query, select query manually. Everything we will perform by using object only. So I want to insert one object. I want to delete one object. I want to update one object. One object nothing but one row in the table. One object is nothing but one row in the table. When I save employee object, in which table that record should be inserted? When I retrieve employee tables data, there are 10 records available. Those records I want to convert into object format. So which table is mapped with which table will be represented by using entity. Data source will represent set of connections with the database. The data source properties we are going to configure in the application.properties file. Next one, we have a entity. What is the entity here? Entity is a Java class which is mapped with a database table. Entity is a Java class which is mapped with database table. How we are going to map our Java class with the table? So let me take one Java class with a name called employee. Inside the employee, I'm taking employee ID, employee name, employee salary. These are my variables, guys. Now let me take this as a table. Okay, this is my database table. Now I want to represent this table along with one Java class. I'm going to take a class called emp. Inside the class, I will take integer employee ID, string employee name, and double employee salary. Like this, we are going to take one Java class. This Java class will be mapped with the database table. The Java class which is mapped with the database table is called as entity class. The Java class which is mapped with the database table is called entity class. Let me consider this as EMP table. EMP table. In that table, employee ID, employee name, employee salary available. Now, how the mapping will happen? Class name will be mapped with the table name and variable names will be mapped with the column names in the table. Class name will be mapped with the table name. Variable names will be mapped with the column names in the table. Are you guys able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? Class name is mapped with the table name. Variable names are mapped with the column name. So to represent this class as a entity class, we are going to use one annotation that is called @entity. There is one annotation, guys. What is that annotation? @entity annotation is available. What is the purpose of @entity? @entity annotation to represent that this is a entity class. It is mapped with the database table. Now, next one, to map a class name with the table name, we are going to use one annotation called @table. To map our variables with the column names, we will use annotation called @column. And one variable is a primary key variable. Primary key will be mapped with the @id. Primary key will be mapped with @id. All right. So what are the annotations we are going to use? Entity, column, entity, table, column, ID. So these are the annotations we are going to use to map our Java class with the table. First one, @entity. Next one, @table, @id, @column. So when we are going to deal with the data JPA, we need to create the entity classes. We need to create the entity classes. What is the meaning of entity class? What is the meaning of entity class? The Java class which is mapped with the database table is called as entity class. Any Java class which is mapped with the database table is called as entity class. So to develop the entity class, to create the entity class, we are going to use below annotations. What are the annotations? @entity, @table, @id, @column. What is the purpose of @entity annotation? Represent class as entity class. Represent the class as entity class. And a table. What is the purpose of table? Map class name with the table name. And it is optional annotation. You no need to write table annotation, guys. That is optional. If you don't write @table, it will consider class name as a table. So if your class name and table names are different, then you need to map your class with the table by using @table annotation. Next one, @id represents the column mapped with primary key. Represents variable mapped with primary key column. In every table, at least one primary key will be available. Which is Java class variable is mapped with primary key column in the table that will be represented by using @id annotation. Okay, and ID is a mandatory annotation, guys. Entity is a mandatory, ID is a mandatory. Next one, column. Map class variable name. Map class variable name with the table column name. And this @column is also optional. If you don't write @column, it will consider variable name as a column name. It will consider variable name as a column name. Fine, come on. Can you tell me what is the data source, guys? What is the data source? Data source represents set of connections with the database. That means it is going to create, it will create connection pool. What is the meaning of the connection pool? What is the meaning of connection pool? It is going to give you set of connections at a time when the application is started. How it will understand? It should connect with which database? Data source properties will be available. Where we are going to configure data source properties? Inside application.properties file. Inside the application.properties file. Then what is the entity? What is entity? Entity is a Java class which is mapped with a database table. We will use below annotations in entity class. What are the annotations we are going to use in entity class? At the rate entity, at the rate table, at the rate ID, at the rate column. What is at the rate entity? What is at the rate entity? Entity will represent class as entity class and it is mandatory annotation. So if you don't write at the rate entity, your Java class is a normal. So it cannot represent with the table structure. So if you want to represent your Java class as an entity class, it's mandatory that you need to use at the rate entity annotation. Then what is at the rate table? Guys, are you getting the voice in the speaker? Is it working? No, not working. Right? Yeah. What is at the rate table? Map our class name with the table name. Map our class name with the table name. So writing at the rate table is optional. If I don't write at the rate table, then what will happen? If I don't write at the rate table, then what will happen? It will consider class name as a table name. You will consider class name as a table name. And what is at the rate ID? It will represent the variable mapped with the primary key column. Represents the variable mapped with the primary key column. What is at the rate column? It will map class variable name with the table column name. It will map class variable name with the table column name. Next one, repository. Okay, repository is an interface. Repository is a interface provided by data JPA to perform CRUD operations. Okay, you no need to write the logic here. You no need to write the logic. I want to create the record. I want to update the record. I want to delete the record. So in order to perform those operations, you no need to write the logic. JPA provided repository interfaces. What you need to do is you create one interface by extending the properties from JPA interface. Okay, so repository is an interface provided by data JPA to perform CRUD operations. Here we have in the data JPA, mainly we have two repository interfaces. Mainly we have two repository interfaces. One is called CRUD repository. Come on, one is called CRUD repository. Second one is called JPA repository. Did I explain that in the video? Did I explain what is the CRUD repository? What is JPA repository? Frankly tell me, how many of you watched that example? Developing the application by using data JPA. You watch? Why? Heavy headed. What you understood from that video? CRUD repository. Good. You did not watch. Don't have time. What about you, madam? You watched? No. Why? Huh? You did not watch. Why? What is the reason? I gave the assignment, right? What is the assignment? You are present yesterday's class, right? What is the assignment I have given yesterday? That is installation part. But two assignments I have given. What are the two assignments? First, application development by using data JP. Why you did not do that? You. I want to know the reason. Why? I'm not asking about whether you will watch today or tomorrow. Why you have not done yesterday? Last specs. You did not came to the class yesterday. Did you see the notes? Completed. Green color t-shirt, yeah. Completed. What is CRUD repository? What is the difference between CRUD repository and JPA repository? What is the difference between CRUD repository and JPA repository? In that video, I have explained that. What is CRUD repository? What is JPA repository? What is the difference? Also, I have explained. What is the difference? You don't know. Then what you have learned? Why? People who have not completed that assignment, could you please stand up? Who has not completed the given assignment? Two assignments I have given, not one. Second assignment not complete. The remaining people. All of you completed that. I want to know the reason, guys. Why you are not doing that? Yesterday, very clearly, I told you in the class. Before coming to the class, you have to complete the two tasks. So that is going to take only half an hour of time. Am I giving an assignment which will take 10 hours, 20 hours? How much time it will take to complete that assignment? Just 30 minutes of time. And if you complete that assignment, who will get the benefit? I will get any benefit? Who will get the benefit if you complete the assignment? Then why are you not understanding? If you complete that assignment, I will not get any benefit. You will be getting the benefit. You will understand the subject. You can learn the things on your own. From day one onwards, I am telling the same thing. Please try to learn the concept on your own. Still, you are depending on the trainer. 1 month course completed. Another 45 days course will be completed. After that, क्या करेगा? What you will do after 45 days of time? After 45 days, our course will be completed. Already 1 month completed. After 45 days, Spring Boot Microservices will be completed. Syllabus will be completed. And the tools also already running in the morning. Tools also will be completed in 1 week. Syllabus will be completed in the 45 days. Next 45 days. What you will do after that? You are not able to develop a simple project by using data JPA on your own. How can you develop a real-time project? How will you get the job? How you will crack the interview? And is this the first time? Is this the first time, madam? Then why you are not serious? Why you are not serious? You don't have half an hour time in the last 24 hours? Yesterday 11 o'clock class completed. Now almost 24 hours of time you have. Within the 24 hours, you did not spend 30 minutes for the assignment. Just tell me the reason. If you have a valid reason, I will accept it. If you don't have any reason, then if you have any valid reason, then I will agree. I will accept it. Why? That's the reason you are stand up, right? Why you did not complete? That is I'm asking the reason. You did not complete. That's fine. Why? Heavy headache. Okay. You why? 。 . 。 。 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 。 。 。 。 。 。 . 。 。 。 。 。 。 。 。 。 . 。 。 。 . 。 。 。 This is not acceptable. What is your name? Pramod. Where are you from? Why you came from Bihar to Hyderabad? It's 24 hours journey, right? You are paying 6,000 to 7,000 for a hostel. Why are you staying in Hyderabad? Why you came to Hyderabad first of all? To learn Java. Are you learning Java properly? Do you feel that you are learning Java? Huh? To learn Java, you came from Bihar to Hyderabad. So you left your parents and you came here, staying in the hostel. Why? What are you doing here? Are you justifying? Are you giving the value to the money that your parents are sending? No. If you realize why you are here, then you will complete the assignments on time. You are just came from Bihar to Hyderabad for time pass. Nothing else. No use. 30 minutes task you are not able to complete in the 24 hours of time. How you will get the job, man? Just think about your parents. How much hard work they are doing to send the money for you. You are wasting their money, not your money. Last one. Huh? Did you develop the application? Working. Okay. Okay. You. If you don't come to the class, you need to check the notes, right? You missed that class. If this is your mindset, getting the job is very difficult. If you are not doing the tasks, if you are not learning the things on your own, nobody can help you. I will be there with you for next 1 month or 45 days or 2 months of time. After that, my batch will be completed. Then I will start next batch. But you will struggle a lot to get the job. You need to keep your 100% efforts while doing the course. Then only you will get the subject. Then only you can crack the interview. Then only you will survive in the job also. Getting the job is first problem. Surviving in the job is the second problem. If you have this mindset, you can't go through those two stages. If you are not interested, just go to your home. Don't waste your parents' money. If you are not interested to study, don't stay in Hyderabad. Just go to your hometown. Why every month you need to spend 10,000 in Hyderabad? That is a burden for your parents, right? They will do a lot of hard work to send that 10,000 rupees to you. But you are enjoying with the 10,000. You are not studying. If you are not interested to get the job, just go to your hometown. Why to stay in Hyderabad? And this is the third assignment, not even first assignment. In the online also, there are several people who has not done. Very few people will complete the remaining. So this is the problem in every batch. In every batch, this is the problem. People are not serious. And they will say that we are not getting the job. People are not strong in the technology. That's why they are not getting the jobs. They are not keeping the efforts to learn the subject. You are not a LKG or first class kid to do the spoon feeding for you. You are unemployed. Remember that. You are not a school kid. You are unemployed. So you should have that zeal to learn the subject and get the job. Without subject, nobody will select you in the interview. Getting the subject, if you just attend the class, you will not get the subject. Not only me, if you go to any trainer in the Amirpet, if you just attend the class, you will not get the job. You need to keep 100% effort from your side. Then only you will learn the concept. up to you. Every day I can't waste the time for motivation, right? So this is the third time. I'm telling you, please change your mindset. Please do some hard work. Do some work before coming to the class. Some homework you have to do before coming to the class. But you are not doing that. Remember, once you go to the interview, then you will face lot of challenges, guys. If you are behaving like this, if you want to learn everything from the faculty, you cannot survive in the industry. 100%. Survival will become very difficult if you are depending on the trainer for learning the subject. Trainer will teach you the subject. Batch will complete in 3 months. Then after, in the company, every day new task, new work, new challenges. You should have confidence to do it on your own. In the company, nobody will help you because everybody will be busy with their work. Please realize, change your mindset. Daily, 3 hours classes you are attending, 3 or 4 hours classes, 2 hours you spend for practice, that is more than sufficient. Just 2 hours of practice is more than sufficient. You are not doing that. You are just coming to the class and you are going. Down. I can't do anything. I will complete my syllabus. Apart from completing the syllabus, can I do anything else? What is my duty? What is my duty here? Complete the syllabus, close the batch, start the next batch. That is my business. This is not my first batch on the Spring Boot. This is my 45 batch on the Spring Boot. I know what is the Spring Boot, how to teach the Spring Boot, how to complete the syllabus. If you are interested, then I will get more interest to deliver more subject. If you are not interested, I will lose my interest. I will complete the syllabus quickly. That's it. Yeah. So in the JPA, we are discussing about what is the data source, what is the entity, what is the repository. Data source represents set of connections with the database. It is going to create a connection pool. When we start our JPA application, it will check for data source properties in one file that is called application.properties file. When we create the Spring Boot application, by default one properties file will be created. In that properties file, database URL, username, password we are going to configure. When you start the application, the database connection pool will be created. Right. Then what is the entity class? Entity is a Java class which is mapped with the database table. We will use below annotations in the entity class. Okay. What are the annotations we are going to use? One is entity, another one is table, another one is ID, another one is column. Entity is a annotation that will represent our Java class as entity class, and writing @entity is a mandatory. Writing @entity is mandatory. Then table. Map class name with the table name, that is optional. If you don't write @table, it will consider your class name as table name. Okay. If your class name and table names are different, then we need to write @table. Next one, @ID. ID is used to represent primary key column mapped variable. In every table, at least one primary key column will be available to maintain unique data. Which variable is mapped with the primary key column in the table will be represented by using one annotation called @ID. And the next one, column. It is used to map our class variable name with the table column name. That is also optional. So if you don't write column annotation, it will take variable name as column name. So in this 4 annotations, 2 are mandatory, 2 are optional. Entity is mandatory, ID is mandatory. Table and column annotations are optional. By using these annotations, we can represent our Java class as a entity class. Next one, repository. JPA provided repository interfaces to perform CRUD operations with the table. Earlier in the JDBC or in the Spring JDBC or Hibernate or Spring ORM, we need to write our own methods to perform the CRUD operations. But when you go for JPA repository, you no need to write the methods on your own. JPA provided predefined methods for you to perform the CRUD operations. In the JPA, mainly there are two repository interfaces available. One is called CRUD repository, another one is called JPA repository. So by using CRUD repository, we can perform CRUD operations. Nothing but insert the record, update the record, delete the record, retrieve the record. When you go for JPA repository, you can perform CRUD operations plus sorting plus pagination, plus query by example. So when you go for JPA repository, that will provide more functionalities when compared with the CRUD repository. If a CRUD repository giving you 10 to 12 methods to perform the operations, JPA repository will provide you 20 methods to perform the operation. That means more functionalities we can implement by using JPA repository. So whatever you can do by using CRUD repository, same thing we can develop by using JPA repository also. So in the CRUD repository, basic CRUD operations we can perform. In the JPA repository, we can perform CRUD operations. We can sort the data, employees, salary, ascending order, salary, descending order, that kind of sorting you can perform. And the next one, pagination. So pagination, nothing but in my table 1 lakh records available. I don't want to display all the 1 lakh records in the single page. So if you go to Gmail, in the inbox, there are so many emails available. Okay. Yeah, let me go for Flipkart. Now in the Flipkart, if you go to the mobiles, okay, open any mobiles in the Flipkart. Mobiles are available. Now category mobiles. So how many mobiles available in the Flipkart, guys? 71,000 mobiles available in the Flipkart database. So when I want to search for the mobiles, is the Flipkart showing all the 71,000 mobiles for us, or Flipkart is not going to show all the 71,000 mobiles for us? For example, let me select the Apple brand. When I go for Apple, how many mobiles available? 1466, 1466 mobiles available in the Apple. Out of this, how many mobiles it is showing? How many mobiles it is showing now? 1 to 40 mobiles it is showing, and the below page number 1, page number 2, page number 3 is available. This is called pagination. So in my table, there are 7,000 mobiles available in the Flipkart. When I clear the filter, now go to the mobiles. How many mobiles it is showing now? 71,000 mobiles available. So is it recommended to display 71,000 mobiles in the one page? Is it recommended to display 71,000 mobiles in one page, guys? Not recommended. Why not recommended? Nobody will see 71,000 mobiles in the application. So that's why out of 71,000 mobiles, it is displaying first 40 mobiles only. It is displaying the 1 to 40 mobiles only. Then it is giving page number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like that. When you click on number 2, then it is going to display next to 40 mobiles, 41 to 80. And when you click on number 3, then it is going to show from 81 to 120. That means every time they are loading only 40 mobiles, 40 products they are displaying. Instead of displaying all the 71,000 mobiles in the single page, they are displaying the records based on the page number. Can you see here? Page is equal to 3. That means third page data they are loading. When I give page number is 1 and when I enter, then what will happen? 1 to 40 mobiles are coming. When I give page number as 2, what is happening? They are giving 41 to 80. When I give the page number is equal to 3 and enter, 81 to 120 products they are giving. Are you guys able to understand my point? That is called pagination. That kind of a pagination can be implemented by using JPA repository. Next one, QBE. QBE nothing but query by example. That means query by example is basically used to filter the data dynamically. Used to filter the data dynamically. Now, mobiles are available, electronics. Let me go for MI. Okay. So MI mobiles are available. How many MI mobiles available? 403 MI mobiles are available. Let me select only mobiles now. Categories. Flipkart. Select mobiles. Yes. Now, mobiles, accessories, it is showing the mobiles now. So currently how many mobiles are there? 6 mobiles are available. Let me go back. Yeah. Mobiles and accessories are available. Click on mobiles. When I click on mobiles, how many mobiles available now? 9,000. So what is the query? Select star from table where category is equal to mobile. Now in the mobile, I want to search for only Samsung mobiles. When I select the filter as a Samsung, then what happened? Only Samsung mobiles are coming. Can I say it is a dynamic filter? It is a dynamic filter. So there are 9,000 mobiles available. Out of the 9,000, I'm selecting only brand as Samsung. Samsung mobiles are coming. In that Samsung mobiles, I want RAM 4 GB only, or I want RAM 6 GB only. Select the RAM as 6 GB. Then how many mobiles are coming? Filter. RAM is selected as 6 GB. Brand is selected as a Samsung. Select a star from mobile where brand is equal to Samsung, RAM is equal to 6 GB. That means every time the query is changing. Initially, if I clear the filter, what is the query executing? How many records are coming? 9,000 mobiles are coming. Select a star from mobiles. All the mobiles I'm getting. Now, customer selecting the brand as a Samsung. Then what happened? Select a star from mobiles where brand is equal to Samsung. Query got changed. Now, I'm going to select the RAM as 4 GB. Then what happened? Select a star from mobile where brand is equal to Samsung, RAM is equal to 4 GB. How many mobiles I got? 169. Out of 9,000, I filtered 169 mobiles. Then scroll down. Internal storage. I want 128 to 255 GB. Select this filter. So third filter is added. How many mobiles are coming? 56 mobiles are coming. Then go to SIM type, dual SIM, network. I want 5G. Select that. How many mobiles are coming now? 4 filters I have added. When you select a new filter, the query is going to change. So that kind of requirement can be implemented by using QBE concept, which is called query by example. So my application should execute the query dynamically based on the selected filter. My application should execute the query dynamically based on the selected filter. If I remove these filters now, select star from mobile, all the mobiles are coming. So I want to work with a dynamic query in the application. I want to work with the dynamic query in the application. To work with the dynamic queries, we are going to use query by example. Are you clear with my point? Sorting. Now you see price low to high. Sorting is happening. Price high to low. I want to get the new mobiles first. This is called sorting. So in this Flipkart, you can see the scenario. Sorting is available. Pagination is available. Query by example is available. When you want to develop this kind of requirement in the project, then you need to go for JPA repository. CRUD repository is available. JPA repository is available. By using both, you can communicate with the database. But what is the difference? CRUD repository will provide basic functionality to perform the CRUD operation. Insert, update, delete, retrieve. That's it. CRUD repository will not support for sorting, will not support for pagination, will not support for dynamic query construction. Okay. So if you have that kind of requirement, then you need to go for JPA repository concept. Are you guys able to follow me? Yes. What is a repository in the data JPA? What is a repository in the data JPA? Repository is an interface provided by data JPA to perform CRUD operations. Repository is an interface provided by data JPA to perform CRUD operations. In data JPA, mainly we have two repository interfaces. What are those? One is called CRUD repository. We can perform CRUD operations by using CRUD repository. Another one is called JPA repository. What is the difference between CRUD repository and JPA repository? What is the difference between CRUD repository and JPA repository? By using CRUD repository, we can perform CRUD operations. By using JPA repository, we can perform CRUD operations plus sorting plus pagination plus query by example. What is the meaning of sorting? Ascending, descending order. What is the pagination? Don't display all the records in the single page. We need to divide the total records into multiple pages by using pagination concept. Then what is query by example? When you want to work with filters in the application, then you need to create a dynamic queries in the project. Query should be changed based on the filter condition. So when you have such kind of a filter functionality in the project, then you can go for query by example concept. Are you clear with my point? Fetch functional, the same, query by example. We can implement it. Right. So we need to understand mainly three components, guys, in order to work with the data JPA. What is the first one? Data source. Second one, entity. Third one, repository. What is the data source? It is going to represent set of connections with the database. It will create connection pool. The next one, we need to configure data source properties in the application.properties file. URL, username, password we are going to configure. Then what is the entity? Entity is a Java class which is mapped with the database table. We will use below annotations in the entity class. Next one, what annotations we are going to use? @entity, @table, @id, @column. Okay, next one. What is a repository? Repository is an interface provided by data JPA to perform CRUD operations. In the data JPA, mainly we have two repository interfaces. One is called CRUD repository, but that is used to perform CRUD operations. Next one, JPA repository. CRUD operations plus sorting plus pagination plus query by example we can do by using JPA repository. Are you clear? Now, what is the data JPA? Spring data JPA that is used to communicate with the databases. When Java application, for every project, database is required to store the data, update, retrieve, delete. To perform CRUD operations with the database table, we are going to use Spring Data JPA. Earlier, people worked with JDBC, Spring JDBC, Hibernate, Spring ORM, Spring Data JPA to communicate with the databases. So if you go for all these things, some boilerplate code that we need to write. To avoid that boilerplate code, we are going to work with the Spring Data JPA. All right, good. Now, how to develop our first application by using data JPA? Developing first data JPA application. Developing first data JPA application. Right? First one, set up database server. I think already you have done the database setup. I no need to write. Create Spring Boot application with below dependencies. Create Spring Boot application with the below dependencies. So first one, starter data JPA. What is the dependency, guys? When you want to develop a project by using data JPA, then you need to add one dependency which is called starter data JPA. Then next one, you need to add MySQL driver. You no need to download the jar file for the MySQL driver. Maven is going to download the driver for you. You need to configure two depend at the time of creating the project only. You select the dependency, starter data JPA and MySQL driver. Then once that project got created, then the second step, configure data source properties in application.properties file. Configure data source properties in application.properties file. So we need to configure data source URL, username, password, driver class. If you want, driver class is optional. Mainly three things are important: URL, username, password. So in the properties file, you need to configure that. Okay, how to configure those properties? If you don't know, then you can just go to Google. You can just go to Google, or you can go to our GitHub repository, GitHub Ashok IT. So you go to my repositories, you type anything, data JPA here. Okay, Spring Data JPA app is available. Go to SRC, main, resources, properties file. So in the properties file, we are going to configure like this: data source URL, data source username, data source password. Driver class is optional. If you don't configure also, no problem. So these are the data source properties we are going to configure: data source URL, data source username, data source password. URL, username, password. Okay. So with which database you want to connect, those properties you need to configure here. And in the another advantage here, guys, you no need to create the tables also. Table creation also will be taken care by data JPA. If you write the property DDL auto update, if you write this property, table also will be created automatically. In the database, you no need to create the table also. Table will be created automatically, and you no need to write the queries. JPA will take care of the SQL queries to insert the record to create the table. Whatever the queries they are executing, you can print those queries on the console by using show SQL. So when you perform some operation by using data JPA, it will execute some query. Which query it is executing? I want to see that query. You can print that query on the console by writing show SQL. That query should be printed properly, format SQL. DDL auto update. If the table is not available, create the table also in the database. For that, we are writing DDL auto update. So these are data source properties. These are ORM properties. Okay. You can add all these properties in the application.properties file. What is the first step, guys? Create the root application with the dependencies, starter data JPA, MySQL driver we are adding. Then data source properties we are configuring, ORM properties we are configuring. So what is the URL of the database? Username and password. These keys are fixed keys, guys. You can't change the key. Value you can modify, but keys you can't change. These are predefined keys in the data JPA. Then what about show SQL? What about show SQL? To print queries on the console. Queries we are writing or JPA will write the query? JPA will write the query for us. Whatever the query it is executing, if you want to print that query on the console, then you can write spring.jpa.showSQL is equal to true. What is format SQL? Print that query in the proper structure. Okay, that is optional. Next one, DDL auto update. What is the meaning of DDL auto update? It automatically creates the tables also. I want to insert a record into book table, but in my database book table not available. Then it will create the table, will insert the record. Okay, good. So after this step is completed, then third step, create entity class. Create the entity class. You know what is entity? How to create the entity? What is entity, guys? Can you tell me? What is entity? The Java class, which is mapped with the database table, private integer or int employee ID, private string employee name, private double employee salary. Right? As of now, it is a normal Java class. For these variables, you write setters and getters. For these variables, you write the setters and getters. Constructor, if you don't write, zero param constructor, default constructor will be available. Now, to represent this class as an entity class, you need to write @entity. What is the purpose of @entity? To represent this is an entity class. Do I need to write the table or table not required? If I don't write the table, class name will be taking as a table name. And primary key, employee ID I want to represent as a primary, @ID. That's it. Column is mandatory or optional? If I don't write column, what will happen? Variable name it is going to take as a column. Are you getting my point? Next one. So with this, my entity class is ready. Then after third step, create repository for the entity. Create repository. Create repository interface. We are going to create public employee repository. Public interface employee repository. So if I write an interface like this, can I call it as a marker interface? What is a marker interface? The interface which does not contain any method is called as a marker interface. Is there any use? If I write like this, is there any use? No methods, there is no use. Now, here what we do, we are going to extend the properties from CRUD repository. Who provided that CRUD repository? CRUD repository, JPA provided. CRUD repository provided by JPA. So in that CRUD repository, several methods available to perform the CRUD operation. You no need to write the query, you no need to write the method to perform the CRUD operation because my interface already extending the properties from CRUD repository to perform the CRUD operation. Are you getting my point? So here, this repository should use which entity? This repository should use which entity? Employee. What is the primary key data type in the employee? Entity. Okay. So repository belongs to which entity? Entity is mapped to table. Repository is used to perform CRUD operation. Repository should perform CRUD operation with which table in the database? That will be identified by using entity. What is the primary key data type in the entity? Integer. So that's why I'm taking CRUD repository with the employee comma integer. This is a generic type. I'm telling that this repository should use the employee entity to perform CRUD operations in the employee table. That's it. With this, our first application is complete. And with this code, you can insert the record, update the record, delete the record, retrieve the record. Am I writing any queries here? Am I writing any methods here? That is the power of data JPA. If you go for normal JDBC, lot of code you need to write to perform the CRUD operation. But in the data JPA, 0 lines of code. Just you need to create one interface by extending the properties from CRUD repository or JPA repository. They will provide the methods for you to perform CRUD operation. They will provide the methods to perform CRUD operations. Are you clear with my point? Once it is done, test application by calling employee repository methods. Test application by calling employee repository methods using start class. Inside the start class, IOC container will be available. Using that IOC, you get the repository object. That repository will give you the methods: save method, delete method, find by ID, find all, count, exist. Like that, there are 10 to 12 methods available in the CRUD repository. You can call those methods and you can perform CRUD operations with the table. So in the start class, you get the employee repository object. Using that repository object, you can call the methods to perform the CRUD operation. So if you can do this, then our first application will be completed by using data JPA. What are the steps we are following? What is the first step? Create the boot application with JPA starter and MySQL driver. What is the second step we need to do? Configure data source properties. Along with that, we are configuring some ORM properties also. What is the third step? Create the entity class. What is the purpose of entity? To map our Java class with the database table. What is the third step? Create our repository interface by extending JPA repository interface. Why? Our repository extending the JPA repository? Because they are providing the methods to perform the CRUD operation. I want to perform the CRUD operations without writing the method, without writing the queries. I want to communicate with the database. That's why our interface is extending the properties from JPA interface, CRUD repository. CRUD repository interface, if you extend, whatever the subclass, subclass can access superclass method. So my employee repository extending from the CRUD repository. Whatever the methods available in the CRUD repository, we can access in the employee repository directly. Now go to the start class, get the employee repository object in the start class and call the methods to perform the CRUD operation. Are you clear with my point? Is it difficult? You need to use your brain. And same thing, whatever I have explained, it is there in the video with the live coding. Practically, I have implemented the project with the Oracle database in the video and I have shown you. If you watched that video yesterday, today this is very easy for you. As you have not watched, it is a confusion. Now, I want you people to complete this task now. Tomorrow, everyone bring your laptop to the class. First, I will check your assignment. Then only I will start the class. The tomorrow assignment, everybody should have database set up in their system. You should be able to develop first JPA application to insert employee record into MySQL table. Work with all CRUD repository method. One more point added for the assignment. You need to tell me what all the methods available in the CRUD repository and you need to develop a project by using all the methods. You need to write the code to work with all the methods available in the CRUD repository. I'm not telling you what methods available in the CRUD repository. You need to research. Go to CRUD repository interface. You see what methods available. What is the purpose of the method? And you practice those methods before coming to tomorrow's session. First, I will check your assignment tomorrow. You need to bring your laptop. You need to show me the example that you have developed tomorrow. Then only I will start the session. Everybody should have MySQL database in their system. They need to create their project by using data JPA and they need to perform all the CRUD operations by using their CRUD repository method. I want to see that example tomorrow. Then only class will happen. If you are not serious, then no need to take the class. If you are serious, then only I will take the class. You got my point? So don't tell me any excuses. You have to complete. If you sit 1 hour, assignment will be completed. Now, tomorrow, after the class is completed, bring your laptop, sit in this class only. Don't go to the lab also. Sit here and do the practice. I will come by 12:30 and I will check. If you are facing any problem, I will tell you how to resolve the problem. Lab session have to do now only. So it's 11 o'clock now. So if your laptop is there, start working on that. If you don't have a laptop, go to hostel, get your laptop, sit in the classroom and start doing the coding now. By 12:30, I will come down and I will see how much you are able to do. If you are not able to do, if you are facing any problem, I will help you to resolve that problem. So you need to develop your application by using data JPA and you need to analyze what is the CRUD repository, what are the methods available in the CRUD repository. You need to work with all the methods available in the CRUD repository. Self-learning you have to improve now. You got my point? Are you agree? Do you agree for the assignment? Yes. If you don't do assignment, what is the punishment? If you don't do the assignment, what is the punishment? If you are not interested, then why should I take the interest? You got my point? If you don't do the assignment, I will not take the class. That is for sure. Okay? Yes. Now do the practice. Hello. I will come, sir. I have some. Online people, any questions? Anybody? Anybody having any question?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you mentioned the CRUD repository is a market interface. So if it is a market interface, then how we are able to access the
Once you
save?
extend, CRUD repository is not a marker interface. CRUD repository having methods.
Okay.
CRUD repository is not a marker interface. In the CRUD repository, there are 11 methods available. Using those methods, you can perform the CRUD operations with the data. Not a marker interface. You write
Okay.
an
Okay.
interface without any methods, then your interface is a marker interface.
Okay. So it is not market interface. Okay.
No, it is having methods. You need to analyze what are the methods
Mm.
available.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, username and password, we can put anything, na sir?
Whenever you are installing the database, you will set username and password of your database. No? That one you
Yes,
need to
yes.
configure.
Okay.
Sir, I have a
Sir,
very small question, sir. I am installing MySQL, but struggling to install on my system. What is the root default root password for MySQL, sir?
Sir, whenever you are installing the database, it will ask you what is the username will be root. Password you will configure at the time of installation, sir.
Okay. Yeah, no. Actually, on the command prompt, it asked me, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, whenever you are installing the database, you will set the password. No? It will not take a default password.
All right, sir. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Sir, please change your mic, sir.
Sure, sir. Definitely, sir. I will resolve that.
Sir, I have one doubt in Mockito, sir. At the rate mark and at the rate spy, what is the difference, sir, actually?
At the rate
spy annotation,
yeah,
when to
the
use that?
JPA will see that, sir. In the
Okay, sir?
JPA class, in the JUnit class, I will tell you that, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Sir, at the data you explained yesterday in a video, right? It is
Sorry?
using the lombard. So at the data annotation that is been
Yes, sir. Now, you
from the
don't use
lombard, right?
Now you no need to use the lombok. You write the setters and getters.
Okay, because it was not identifying yesterday, so I manually write those status and methods.
Put that data and write the setters getters manually.
Okay.
Yeah, manually, as in like when we click on source and then we can generate the getters and setters, right? Right, sir. Lombok is no longer we are going to explore in our whole path. Is it, sir?
You can write manually setters getters for the variables.
All right, sir.
Sir, for a complex query, how we can do it, like when we are joining multiple tables?
Sorry, can you come again?
With this JPA, when we are like writing with multiple table joining.
Yes, sir. We'll discuss how to work with the join, sir. Currently, we are in the first example only.
This is with the simple queries only, right?
It's correct. It is simple with one table. How to work with multiple tables also we will discuss.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
Yes,
thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, tell me.
Sir, we need to write methods in interface, no, sir?
You no need to write the methods, sir. Already the methods available in the CRUD repository. You just need to call the methods. You no need to write the methods again.
Okay, we just need to leave it blank.
Yes, you just extend the properties and you call the predefined methods. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Sir, with this part, with our learning journey, we'll be exploring the exception propagation as well, right? Because from SQL, we'll get only SQL exception, and since Hibernate is Hibernate will take care of the exception propagation. So Spring Data JPA also take care of the exception propagation, right, sir?
Yes, sir. So we no need to do anything for that.
So that those exceptions will be able to capture in our custom, customized exceptions, right, sir?
Correct.
Based on the exception code. All right, sir. Thank you.
Sir,
Thank you.
in Hibernate, we do the reverse data engineering to get the data models. So for JPA, what we have to do it for existing database?
So for that JPA tools we need to use, sir. JPA tools, if you use, you can do the reverse engineering. So directly it is not there in the data JPA. You need to work with the JPA tools, then you can do the reverse engineering.
So you will also teach us, right, how to do that?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys.